What if we throw the ball in this direction? Can we analyze this?
Yes, we can. But before we do, remember I told we break translation motion into three sets of independent dimension? Till now, we only talked about motion in one direction. The case you are referring to involves two direction. But actually, two dimension is not much different than one dimension. You don't have to learn any new theory or equation. Only remember that these two directions are independent to each other.
How is that important?
Because they are independent, we can just turn blind to the other axis and focus only on one axis. When we are done with analysis of this axis, we can move to the next. Only additional thing you have to do is resolve the quantities into two axes.
What is that?
We had earlier discussed how direction is important in certain physical quantities like position or velocity. These quantities, which have both values and direction, are called vectors. A vector can be resolved into components. That actually means we write the same vector in two dimensions as a sum of two vectors which are independent to each other and can be analyzed separately. If you have studied trigonometry, you must know that how to find the component of a vector in both x and y axis. Coming back to the scenario you have mentioned, let's talk about a ball hit by a batsman. The ball first goes up and then comes down. This up and down motion takes place in y axis. Simultaneously, the ball is moving towards the boundary, that is in x axis. How do we predict the behavior of such motion? Let's turn on our y axis mode first. What do you see?
It looks familiar. The ball is going up and stops and then comes down.
As usual, we will decide the sign of direction and choose a origin. Let's keep origin at the initial position and downward direction as positive. What will be the value of its initial state variables?
The y component of velocity is v sine theta. So, this is our initial velocity. The ball is finally coming back to the same point on y-axis, so s is 0 and a is equal to g.
Yes, that's it. We'll put the initial velocity on the graph and draw a straight line with negative slope equal to acceleration, which is minus g. The point when the velocity becomes 0 is the highest point of the flight. The difference in velocity is known, hence we also know the time at this point by dividing velocity difference with acceleration. Now, as you said, the ball is coming back to its original position, hence the net displacement is 0. This information tells us the area of this triangle should be same as this with opposite sign, thus cancelling each other. This again leads us to think that this point lies perfectly in the mid of the whole flight. So the time it takes to go up will be same as the time it takes to come down. And as the time for going up is same as coming down, the magnitude of change in velocity will be same in both the time interval. Thus, the final velocity is just negative of the initial velocity. So, finally the information we can obtain here are, as I said, the time to reach the highest point and the time of complete flight, that is double of this. We can also find the maximum height it reaches by finding the area, which is again half into time interval into velocity difference. Now we will look at the x-axis. What do you see?
Hey, this just has a constant velocity.
Exactly. In x direction, acceleration is 0, so the velocity will remain constant. I told you these two axes are completely independent of each other. But there is one quantity which unites these two axes. That is time. The moment the ball hits the ground in our y-axis analysis, the ball should also stop in our x-axis analysis. So using this knowledge, we can find the range of the flight. I think we are ready to go further and solve more complicated problems. Let's hear from our physics god,